Hello and welcome to another video. So, in Dead by Daylight, there are a lot of killers who all play very uniquely from each other. However, despite this, the community has come up with a few categories that they generally agree with. Killers like M1 killers, dash killers, and many other types. But in this video, I want to give every killer their proper classification. To start, we should come up with the categories I will be using. And for this video, the categories I will be using are Control, Zone, Snowball, Stealth, Trap, Teleport, M1, M2, Ranged, Infection, and Dash. And there will be one more mentioned later for a couple of killers. So, without further ado, let's hop right into the video. Trapper is an M1 and a trap killer. The reason for this classification is pretty obvious. He uses bear traps, and he mostly uses his M1 to deal damage. Wraith is a stealth M1 killer. With the ability to go invisible and using his M1 to deal most of his damage, the classification feels pretty accurate to what Wraith does. Hillbilly is a dash killer and is very defined by that, with Billy having the chainsaw to send them quite far. Additionally, it insta-down survivors, leading to our first non-M1 killer. Nurse is a teleport killer. Now, you may be surprised to say that this is not an M1 killer, but if you're experienced in DBD, you would know that Nurse's blink attacks are labeled as special attacks for the sake of balance. However, it's not an M2, as a result, we will keep her as a teleport killer, and that is all. Michael Myers is a dash stealth killer. With the recent rework, he went from a stealth M1 killer to a stealth dash killer, which completely changes how he plays. Hag is a trap teleport killer, one of few trap killers, and Hag is a teleport one. As a result, she's a trap teleport. Doctor is a control M1 killer. This may surprise some, however, I think control describes the shock very well. It can be used to control survivors in a chase to control whether or not they pull or not. Additionally, he uses the M1 to deal all of his damage. I will note, though, he is close to being a zoning killer. Bubba is a Snowball M2 killer. This is something you may hear a lot of people mention and be confused, but a Snowball killer is one who can go from a very losing position to a winning one pretty damn quickly. If you've seen any Epidemic clips, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Huntress. She is a ranged killer, and this is pretty self-explanatory. She has hatchets and she throws those that hit survivors. Not much else to say. Freddy is a trap teleport killer. Freddy was tougher to categorize because of how much there is to his kit nowadays. However, he has traps in the form of pallets and be able to teleport to gens and healing survivors. So I think this classification definitely fits him. Pig is a stealth, trap, and a dash killer. Pig was a very hard one to do. However, I think that she deserves our first 3 classification, with the reverse bear traps easily being a good trap, having a very prominent dash, and being a very, very much a stealth killer. I think that this classification overall fits. Clown is a zoning control killer. With his bottles, he's easily a control killer, and they're very good enough to be a zone that I think that this classification fits. Spirit is a stealth M1. This may be surprising to some people, but I think that this fits the category with her being very stealthy in the phase, even if it doesn't last that long, and the M1 is very prominent. Legion is an M1 killer. Legion, I think, best fits the idea of an M1 killer, with their power being very dependent on the M1 and just being a sprint. As a result, they fit perfectly in this category and absolutely no other category. Plague is an infection range killer. Our first of many infection killers, Plague is pretty easy to define with a range attack and a very easy to spread infection. She is the definition of an infection killer. Ghostface is an M1 stealth killer. When you think of an M1 killer or a stealth one, Ghostface is probably the first one you think of, because he is the definition of this category, without a doubt in my mind. Demogorgon is a dash teleport killer, with his portals allowing him great teleportation and a dash in the form of his shred. Oni is a snowball dash killer. Oni is mayhaps the definition of a snowball killer, or at the very least, he's the first one I think of when it comes to them. He he has a pretty prominent dash in his skill, and he allows to snowball very easily. As a result, this is a fitting classification. Deathslinger is a ranged killer. Once again, another killer that perfectly fits the definition and pretty much no other definition. The Executioner. He is a ranged infection killer, which may surprise some, but I do think the Torment counts as an infection, and additionally, the M2 is a range. Now, some may argue that he should be an M2 infection killer, and to that, I'd say I would almost be okay with that, but the range is far enough that I think he fits in range just enough. The Blight is a dash killer, and do I even have to explain this one? He is the dash killer. His rushes allowing him to charge and dash forward. Pretty self-explanatory if I say so myself. The Twins is a ranged dash killer. This one may be a very spicy take, but Victor performs close enough to a dash like Demogorgons that I think it counts, and Victor allows for quite a ranged attack. So as a result, I'd say the Twins count as a ranged and dash killer. Trickster. He's a ranged killer. And this is pretty self-explanatory once again, just like Huntress, but with knives. Nemesis is an infection M2 killer. With his technical performing as a good M2 attack and applying an infection, this one was very easy to categorize. The Artist is a zone ranged killer. The Artist is one of the strongest zoning killers in the game, and is very well known for having set ability, and the Crows are very much so ranged. As a result, the Artist fits these categories perfectly. The Onion is a teleport stealth killer. When making this list, I had considered having Onion as a snowball killer, which could fit, but I think the stealth aspect is more prominent, and that Onion doesn't have as strong of a snowball as Oni or Bubba. However, I do think it could fit. But otherwise, Onion fits perfectly into the teleport stealth category. Following up on that, the Dredge is a teleport control killer, which I will admit his ability is more of an anti-loop, but control is sort of anti-loop in itself. As a result, I think it still works here. Wesker is a dash infection killer. Again, a pretty self-explanatory one. He has 2 dashes, and once he hits someone, he infects them. Pretty simple. The Knight is a zoning control killer. This is pretty accurate to Knight, especially the zoning part, because Knight is very well known for being able to zone people with his assassin, especially. The Skull Merchant is a zoning trap killer. The drones act as a trap and a zoning device, just not a particularly good one. The Singularity is a teleport, infection, and a trap killer. Singularity's role here is pretty easy to explain, however the inclusion of 3 roles was definitely forced. He fits the 3 roles perfectly, with his biopods applying an infection that lets him teleport, and he fits control because his ability is very anti-loop. But I do think that 4 would be too many for one killer, so we're sticking it to 3. The Xenomorph is a teleport M2 killer, with his tunnels acting as a teleport and his tail having a similar M2 to Nemesis. Chucky is a stealth dash killer, pretty prominently a dash killer and elements of stealth to his kit, so as a result, he's not hard to explain at all. The Unknown is a teleport, infection, and ranged killer. Yet another killer that perfectly fits 3 categories due to having infection via his ranged attack. The Lich is the first of the killers that I would give the Jack role. Him and another killer later on both have this role due to having so many abilities and not being the master of any of them. So as a result, Lich is a Jack control due to most of his abilities being anti-loop. And we have our other Jack, the Dark Lord, acting as a Jack range killer. While he has a lot of abilities, I do think across most of them, the main theme is ranged. As a result, he fits that category pretty damn well. The Houndmaster is a zoning control killer, with dogs able to zone and help control loops. I think this fits her quite well. The Ghoul is an infection dash killer, with the Ghoul having a very well-known dash and a short-lasting infection. So as a result, this fits very, very well. The animatronic is a ranged teleport killer. Thankfully, Springtrap is very easy to define, with his axe being definitively ranged and him having to teleport via the security doors. And finally, we have the Krasu, a killer with a very big infection and dash element to her kit, resulting in a dash infection killer. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you have any suggestions for future videos or want to see a video like this again, please let me know. I had a lot of fun editing this one. And also, big shout outs to As Movies, I think that's how you say his name, for the inspiration for this video, as his videos have been a guilty pleasure to watch recently. I hope you all enjoy and have a great day.